For a long time, I've really been wondering what could possibly follow up Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, because I really want that. I want Super Smash Bros. Ultimate to not just be a memory of the Switch 1 era. I want it to live on in the Switch 2 era, and for it not to be forgotten if there even is a new game in development. But is there? Masahiro Sakurai, director of all the games, he's not working on Smash right now. He's on Kirby Air Riders, and Nintendo hasn't announced anything. So I want to dive into this idea about what is Nintendo's idea for the next Smash game, but more importantly, this theory I got that they are potentially not only working on a new game, but they're gonna release a sort of Ultimate 2.0, if you will. But how expensive will it be? Is Sakurai gonna be working on it? Will there be new characters? And is the game pretty far off? It's important to talk about this right now because the Switch 2 is around the corner, or maybe even has been out if you watch this after the release. But it's just weird because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate leaving where it was, we have like the ultimate Super Smash Bros. Game. Like, it lives up to that name. It had 82 characters, ending with freaking Sora being the most voted character. Like, of all the things to end with, that was perfect. It has over 100 stages, a near endless amount of game franchises represented through music, spirits, Miis, just like it's a celebration of video games. But most of all, what I miss about Smash in just the overall video game industry scene is that speculation, that presence that the Super Smash Bros. Reveals had in Nintendo Directs. That is something that is sorely missed. And how could we bring that back? Well, yeah, they could make a new game. Maybe they are making a new game. I think there's rumors of that, but you know, who knows with the Nintendo rumors anymore. But that's pretty far off. So are they just gonna leave behind Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the thing that it represents? I don't think so, and this is why. First off, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is like one of the most sold games for the Nintendo Switch 1 era. I think it's like number 3 currently, and it is the most sold fighting game of all time by a wide margin. So yeah, a new game makes sense. You might be hearing that and going, yeah, a new game makes sense then. That's what they do. They would want to make a follow-up to something that successful. But with Masahiro Sakurai, the director of pretty much all the Smash games and the guy that's really been the backbone of all of them, he's working on Kirby Air Riders right now. That's releasing this year. So, you know, maybe he'll go to the next thing afterwards. And this was a project that Nintendo let him work on. So yeah, maybe they did tell him you get to do this and then go back to Smash afterwards. But, you know, if that's the case, that's going to be a while before we see what's next for Smash, whether it's a new entry or a reboot. But they can't top Ultimate, right?
I don't know.
There's also the idea that a new Smash is in development under a totally different direction, under a new director, and that could be the case, but do they dare? So I'm slapping somebody because we got to come back to reality here about the whole Nintendo money situation, because now we know that Nintendo, regarding their old games, yeah, they're going to make backwards compatibility a thing for basically all Switch 1 games, but they're also having these Switch 2 editions of games. And what these Switch 2 editions are going to have is new content in them, not just like making it 4K or 120 frames or whatever. They're adding new content as if it's like DLC that is exclusive to this edition of the game. But that is something I think is worth exploring with you here, because currently in these Switch 2 editions, I've been watching a lot of Austin Powers lately.
Yeah, baby!
Currently, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is not listed in any of these. It's just currently a backwards compatible game. So you can just play it, but there's no upgrade, there's no new content or anything currently. And if that's the case, that means Nintendo just plans to leave Super Smash Bros. As a franchise with the Switch 1 era, and maybe we're just kind of left at a big question mark, and they're not making any money off of that IP. I just don't buy it. So here's what I think Nintendo is cooking up, or maybe optimistically could be. What if, say, we got a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate 2.0? What would be a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Switch 2 edition? One that you have to pay a lot of money. like it depends on where you're at. If you got the fighters passes or you didn't, it's going to be a tricky situation. We're going to come back to that as to how pricey this could be, but just brace yourself for that because it's Nintendo. But this idea of a Switch 2 edition of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is intriguing. You know, like what if, say, Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, that's adding a whole other world or section area to just play stuff, you know? And I'm thinking in that vein, like what if it added a whole Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it added a whole other mode or like a layer to World of Light that you could explore with a new boss. Or the thing that people want more, I'm sure, is a Fighters Pass Volume 3.
Shut your... Don't.
And not to mention a 120 frame upgrade patch, if you will, for the Switch 2 edition, the fighting game nuts, which, again, best sold fighting game of all time, highest sold fighting game of all time. The fighting game community would go nuts over that. 120 frame version of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, like absolutely. That would potentially almost warrant a upgrade price in itself, potentially, because this is Nintendo. How much would Nintendo charge for this?
$1 million.
When you look at these Switch 2 edition upgrades, most of them cost basically $10 to $20. But the thing that sucks is when we look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, for instance, a game that had like DLC packs, you know, like the freaking Master Sword Trials and I forget the Champions Route, whatever. The Switch 2 edition doesn't include those, which is horrendous, absolutely disgusting. You know, why not include those in like an Ultimate edition of the game, if you will? Knowing that they didn't do that, that tells me the Switch 2 edition, unfortunately, would not include the previous fighter packs. But let's be real. Did you not get those? I feel like everybody that bought Smash Ultimate either bought the characters they wanted or they just got every fighter pack. So it's like most of us probably will already have those, but it just sucks for those that potentially don't have Smash Ultimate. Again, I feel like this will be a few in between scenario, but still you'll have to get those separately. But how much would this Switch 2 upgrade be, or just as a standalone upgrade? Because they do offer that for people that do already own the game. And that's like probably what most of us are going to be doing. Fighter Pack 1, it was $25 for 5 characters. Fighter Pack 2, it was $30 for 6 characters. If we're sticking to that $10 to $20 area, then I would imagine Fighter Pack 3, hypothetically, if that's what they were doing, would be $20 for 4 characters. And that would be pretty cool, no? It brings Super Smash Bros. Ultimate back to the Nintendo Direct scene. I don't know if they would make this like a year-long campaign or something, or if they just do it all at once. I feel like they would do it all at once. I really would love your feedback about that and how they would handle it. But it just would be so much better, you know, than just making Super Smash Bros. Ultimate just backwards compatible. It would, but most importantly, for Nintendo, the Nintendo, it would entice people to buy a Switch 2 edition of Smash Ultimate. Like, you want to make money, do that. Like, give them the Switch 2 edition that is exclusive characters to the Switch 2. That's why they're, instead of making these DLC things individually purchasable for Switch 1 players that had these games, they're making it Switch 2 exclusive to help sell the system. And that's a strategy that'll help sell the system. And that's what they could do with this, whether it's Fighter Pack 3 or additional content. It's just a way to get people to upgrade their game that over 30 million people bought. 4 new characters and 120 frames. That is a neat way to bring Smash Ultimate back for a bit, to bring it back to that scene. Again, I don't know if they would spread this out or just do it all at once. I'd be very curious to think about that, but it's just a cool way to make Super Smash Bros. Ultimate have its kind of like life again in Nintendo, just in the Switch 2 era. Because again, how do you top Smash Ultimate? You just can't. You have to like make something new instead. And if Sakurai's going to be a part of that, he's working on Kirby Air Riders. And it feels like this would be a more fast project for him to work on. And who knows, maybe he put the word out before he started working on this and Nintendo got ready ahead of time. And then he could just jump on and start actually working on the things now that Nintendo's handle licenses. Who knows? But it'd be really cool. I just don't know how they would handle it, though. Like, do you think that they would just make it first-party characters and that made it all the more easy to just get done fast? Or would there be room for third-party characters? Or would Nintendo just make it a $10 upgrade to the 120 frame rate option? I would certainly hope that was free, but yeah, they also could just do the new game mode type. Become a Geek Proud Awesome speculator by lending your voice on it in the comments. That's why I do these. And if you want to know why Banjo-Kazooie would probably show up at the next Nintendo show, I am pretty confident that's going to happen. And that video right here explains why. But seriously, let me know your thoughts about an idea of Smash Ultimate 2.0 and how you think Nintendo could/should handle it.